Kings of Little Egypt, Video 3, 1924. The Shelton brothers were determined to kill Glenn Young, if Ora Thomas didn't beat them to it. While attending a Klan rally in Herrin, they learned of Young's intention of taking his act to East St. Louis, having worn out his welcome in Herrin. The Sheltons followed him when he left, and shot up his vehicle in an area known as the Okaw Bottoms. It was a desolate place. The roads were poor, mostly gravel, isolated. Young was wounded, but his wife was shot in the face and seriously injured. They both survived, however. The next day, Jack Skelcher, one of the shooters, was shot to death while returning to Herrin. Charlie Briggs, also a shooter, was wounded and taken hostage. Sam Stearns, head of the Justice League and KKK, managed to get Carl and Earl indicted, but nothing came of it. People were fed up with Glenn and the KKK. Soon after, Young took his act to East St. Louis, where he connected with a Grand Dragon, who gave Young the green light, but just as in Herrin, the luster soon disappeared. When people complained of brutality, Young was dismissed and went back to Herrin, where the Sheltons were about to go to trial for shooting Caesar Cagle. It was a brief trial. The witness against him didn't show, and the case was dismissed. Bernie had done his work. Young was furious. Before he could take further action, Herrin went off. Sheriff George Galligan, the Shelton supporter and foe of the Ku Klux Klan, went to Smith's garage to retrieve the Dodge sedan that Jack Skelcher was driving when he was killed. It was also the car used in the Okaw Bottoms shootout. Two of his deputies, Ora Thomas and Bud Allison, went with him. Things did not go well, and when the shooting that ensued stopped, 6 men were dead. In Herrin's reenactment of the 1881 OK Corral shootout in Tombstone, Arizona. Bud Allison was one of them. 3 Kluxers and 2 civilians also died. Carl was shot in the arm. Earl had a calf wound, and Galligan was shot in the shoulder. Bernie was unscathed. Glenn Young and Ora Thomas went about settling their grievance. Meanwhile, time passed. By 1925, the Christians were abandoning the Klan, but there was no surrender. Beaten but not defeated would be an accurate term. Ora Thomas was now a chief deputy sheriff. Glenn Young was a civilian. They stalked each other continuously. Sooner or later, it was bound to happen, and one day it did. Ora left the city court building and headed to the Canary cigar store located on the ground floor of the European Hotel, which stood on the corner of Park and Monroe. Just as he left the city court building, a shot was fired from ambush, which barely missed him. The shooter escaped. Ora proceeded on his route. At the same time, Glenn Young and some supporters were also out for a walk 4 blocks away. When they were alerted to shots fired in the vicinity of the European, they moved swiftly in that direction. Ora went in the side entrance and heard Glenn arguing with the proprietor. He stepped around the corner and spotted Young. They both drew. Shots rang out. Glenn Young fell mortally wounded. As Ora reloaded, he was shot from behind by Lamont Woodard, whose father had been killed by Thomas at Smith's garage. As he lay dying, he asked, "Did I kill the bastard?" "Yes, you did," replied the nurse. Ora passed 15 minutes later. With the killing of Ora Thomas and Glenn Young, the Klan wars started to fade. The KKK was a virus that could not be condoned. The masses firmly rejected the push by evangelical Christians to impose their will on a society that wasn't buying it. While all this mayhem was unfolding, Charlie Berger had been busy out at his new abode, which his wife Beatrice had named Shady Rest. He bought the 40 acres that housed Shady Rest in 1923 before being jailed in Danville during the Klan battles. Charlie regretted it mightily. I could have a scalp or two, he complained to his new lieutenant, Art Newman. I could have tried out my new toy on Glenn. He held up his Thompson machine gun. Yeah, well, Ora took care of his sorry ass, said Newman. Charlie had a simple business model. Let the Sheltons do the heavy lifting while he grew his distribution network. There was, however, a fly in the ointment. Berger and his gang were killers, which in the end proved to be their undoing.